Tonight, jobs, jobs, jobs.
What a good morning.
Hopeful news in the pandemic recovery, with nearly 1 million new jobs added in July as the unemployment rate ticks down. This is the bipartisan infrastructure bill finally heads toward a vote. Plus,
it can get to anyone. It gets you if you're 10, if you're 60, it doesn't matter.
Requiring masks and COVID-19 vaccine mandates. And tanks roll in. Israel prepares for a dire scenario in the wake of Hezbollah rocket attacks. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The U.S. economy is seemingly on the mend. Good evening, I'm Jenna Browder. Well, some good news this Friday. The U.S. economy added more jobs than expected, and the unemployment rate is down. This is a number of states end extended unemployment benefits ahead of the deadline. CBN's Tara Merchner is here with the details. Tara?
Jenna, the job gains occurred as 3 additional states ended that extra $300 per week in federal jobless benefits. Some experts believe it may be a contributing factor to the additional 943,000 jobs added last month.
What a good morning.
President Biden hailing the better-than-expected numbers as more people return to the office. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, nearly 1 million jobs added in July.
What is indisputable now is this. The Biden plan is working, the Biden plan produces results, and the Biden plan is moving the country forward.
The unemployment rate fell slightly to 5.4%. It remains well above the pre-pandemic figure of 3.5%. This as the U.S. continues to suffer a serious labor shortage.
I think the main thing is, what's the outlook for the second half of the year, whether we can get people working, whether employers can find those workers with so many positions open.
Still, millions are staying home, with many businesses blaming generous unemployment benefits for the problem. The Biden administration disagrees.
We've seen over the last 3 months 800,000 people come into the average of 800,000 people come into the workforce, and we had the $300 benefit in those spaces.
July's job gains largely in leisure, hospitality, local government, and business services. Education could also get a boost next round as many schools prepare for in-person learning.
Good morning, welcome.
Still looming over the data, concerns about the Delta variant impact being felt across the country.
In just the last week, Amazon, Microsoft, Wells Fargo have pushed back their return to work dates to much later dates. Amazon not until next January. Apple and Google are also among the companies that have pushed back the return to work.
Meantime, even with these gains, the number of Americans working or looking for a job remains stuck at almost 6.2%, a number that's held steady for the last year. And that leads many economists and businesses needing help to ask, where are the workers, Jenna?
All right, Tara Merchner, thank you. Well, the July jobs numbers come as the bipartisan infrastructure deal is set for a vote in the Senate as soon as tomorrow. The president on Capitol Hill today touting the strong jobs numbers and this $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal.
It's a bill that would end years of gridlock in Washington and create millions of good-paying jobs, and put America on a new path to win the race for the economy in the 21st century. Historic investment in roads and rail and transit and bridges, in clean energy and clean water. It will enable us not only to build back, but to build back better than before the economic crisis hit.
With a key vote set for tomorrow, the bill still needs 60 votes to end debate. The massive bill includes $550 billion in new federal spending over 5 years, invests $110 billion in roads and bridges, $65 billion for rail lines and trains, and another $65 billion for broadband internet access, and more. With that, let's bring in our political panel. Julia Manchester, political reporter with The Hill, and CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. Both of you welcome and happy Friday. Julia, to you first. Is this infrastructure bill going to be a done deal by the weekend, or are we about to head into another week of debate?
Well, it's hard to say. I think there's been a lot of twists and turns with this infrastructure bill, and there's obviously still concerns on the Republican side that this bill could be too big. So we'll really have to see what happens. But I think President Biden sounding very optimistic today about this deal. And we know that on the campaign trail, he did very much preach this message of bipartisanship. And I think on the Republican side, there will be some hesitancy to give Biden a win on this. And I think that's why you've seen among some Republicans an unwillingness to go along with this. So we'll have to see how it goes. But from the president's, judging from his comments, he seems to be very optimistic.
David, the Congressional Budget Office estimates the bipartisan infrastructure bill would add $250 billion to the deficit. Supporters of the bill were saying it would be fully paid for. What about that?
Yeah, it's a real problem for Republicans. And, first of all, Julia's right as to whether or not there are going to be Republicans that will vote for this to, in essence, give Biden a victory. And then there's the pay-fors, this idea of that, indeed, it will add quite a bit of deficit out there. So, look, I talked to Senator John Thune this week, and he basically said that he's got some real concerns about this. He wants to make sure the whole thing is paid for. Well, it's not. The CBO says it's not going to be. It's going to add money to the deficit. So with that in mind, I watched for Senator John Thune and some others who have said that they would initially most likely support it, but they were concerned about the financial aspects of it. And now we know from the CBO that it's a problematic situation. So now we see if John Thune and others actually back away and don't give that support. Whether or not it actually is able to pass, I still get the sense that it will, because you've got 10 Republicans that have pretty much dug in on this to say that they're going to support it.
All right, well, we'll wait and watch. A vote could happen as early as tomorrow. In the meantime, let's talk about COVID-19, the Delta variant surging, and leadership, depending on where you live, looks very different. In Florida, for example, they're taking a very relaxed approach in terms of restrictions and mandates. Julia, how do you see this playing out politically for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis? There's a lot of talk about him possibly running for the White House in 2024.
It's really hard to say. I mean, being in Florida during the first part of the pandemic, we saw Ron DeSantis' popularity really go up and down. And for a while earlier this year, he was being praised for his handling of the pandemic because we've seen that Florida's economy did much better than other states' economies like California, for instance. However, this stage of the Delta variant and the Delta variant itself is very different from the first part of the pandemic. We are seeing that this is impacting the entire state of Florida at, an equal rate. Instead of there being pockets of hotspots, the whole state is virtually a hotspot. You're seeing, higher cases of hospitalization. So that leads many of us to think that this is a more serious case. Now, Ron DeSantis pushing back on that, saying this is a result of the mainstream media pushing hysteria, that, it's not as bad as it seems. He's been touting, vaccination efforts in Florida as well. So I think we'll have to get on the other side of the Delta variant to see what that means. But in the meantime, I think with the political base, absolutely Ron DeSantis is viewed very positively among that conservative base.
David, this week he and the president exchanged some jabs about COVID-19. For the Biden administration, there's criticism that maybe they're too heavy-handed, and a lot of people think it's government overreach, how they're handling the pandemic. Could their approach backfire on them politically?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there's a groundswell in this country about how government has gone way overboard. You have to understand. The folks that are unvaccinated, they might have some problems, obviously, with the emergency authorization and the science and the government and everything. But their real issue is the fact that you have to really that they're going to want to mandate it. They don't like the fact that you have to mandate this thing. And look what de Blasio has done in New York. So I'm looking to early next week, those protests in New York. We understand there's going to be hundreds of thousands potentially in front of City Hall, protesting what de Blasio did with indoor dining and mask mandates this week. I think that's something to watch because, if de Blasio gets away with this in New York, it will come to other cities and states, especially blue states and blue cities like D.C. and Philadelphia and others.
Finally, just a few seconds left here. Real quickly, President Biden's beige suit today, getting a lot of headlines. Julia, David, both, yay or nay?
Yay, I love a good tan suit.
Well, put it this way, if I went to Walmart in 1972, I would think it's fantastic. So I guess from that perspective, sure, why not?
All right, and we will leave it on that note. David and Julia, thank you both so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
And coming up, with the Delta variant on the rise, mask mandates and vaccine requirements are on the horizon.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Mandatory vaccinations could be coming to the workforce. This as private companies are choosing to vaccinate more employees. CBN News correspondent Brody Carter has the latest as doctors try to find a cure. Brody?
Well, Jenna, statistics show both a wild week and a clear division in the COVID-19 picture. The virus spreading like wildfire, especially in areas with low vaccination rates. And as testing begins on possible treatments, more private companies are starting to require vaccinations.
We just have to keep going. And it's simple. That means get vaccinated, please. It's safe. It works.
So far, about 50% of Americans are fully vaccinated. Meantime, mandatory vaccinations are taking off. United Airlines joins the growing list of private companies now requiring shots, becoming the first commercial airline to do so. In all, 67,000 United employees will receive the jab.
So I think that this requiring of individuals to be vaccinated in order to come back to work or to go back to school is a growing trend. And makes a lot of sense.
Big box retailers and private companies like Walmart and Walt Disney already mandating vaccines for employees. The White House adding that this could also influence the non-vaccinated to consider getting the shot.
And as long as the virus continues to spread, you give it ample opportunity to mutate. And when you give it ample opportunity to mutate, you may sooner or later get another variant. And it is possible that that variant might be in some respects worse than the already very difficult variant we're dealing with now.
With COVID getting more serious, so are the policies from companies mandating the vaccine. CNN said Thursday it fired 3 employees for violating its coronavirus protocols by going to the office unvaccinated, and then canceled plans to bring back staff due to the Delta variant.
So really it's a call again for that global solidarity to achieve the coverage we need.
And as the vaccine debate rolls on, so does the search for a cure. The World Health Organization will soon test 3 drugs as a viable treatment. One used against HIV, a malaria treatment, and an antiviral once used against Ebola. Subjects are being vetted at the Norwegian Institute of Public Health. Talk of a possible vaccine mandate for the U.S. military still making headlines. In a quote from Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby, he said there has been no change to our use of the vaccine as a voluntary measure of protection. Now we continue to urge everyone in the department to get vaccinated. Jenna, back to you.
All right, Brody, thank you. And joining us now, CBN News medical reporter Lori Johnson. Lori, let's pick up there with the military and a potential mandate that could be coming for military members. Could that hold up to legal scrutiny?
Well, Jenna, President Biden was wondering the same thing, too. So he asked the Department of Justice, and they said that it really does need to be approved, not emergency use authorization, but actual approval by the FDA, unless the president issues a presidential waiver. And certainly President Biden plans on doing that. You know, a lot of military people do not want to get vaccinated. The vaccination rate is very low among active duty military. It's only 64%. That's lower than we see outside the military. We know that people over 18, the vaccination rate is 70%. And so this is not going to go over very well with these active duty military personnel. And remember, this is a flat out mandate. It's not like the other federal mandates that we've seen among federal workers and federal contractors, where it's like you have to get a vaccine or you will have to subject yourself to testing once or twice a week and wear a mask. This is just like you have to get vaccinated. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, or else. Lori, do you think, when the FDA does hopefully approve the Pfizer vaccine, that could change people's, will to get a vaccine? Or do you see that moving the needle at all?
Well, as a matter of fact, the Kaiser Family Foundation issued a new survey just on Wednesday that took a look at the attitudes of people who are unvaccinated. About half of unvaccinated people say they're open to the idea of perhaps getting one before the end of the year. And yes, FDA final approval is one of those tipping points. And so it looks like President Biden said that the FDA looks like they're going to issue that final approval by fall. But insiders within the FDA say they have their own deadline of before Labor Day. So we could see that coming soon. And again, we're just talking about Pfizer. Moderna just now finished wrapping up their application process, and J&J has not applied yet for that final approval. So we're just talking about Pfizer.
Yeah. Lori, kids are getting ready to go back to school. Many will have to wear masks this fall. We've seen kids be relatively unaffected or untouched by this virus, leaving a lot of parents and others, teachers, just people, wondering if this is really necessary. I'm curious about your thought on that.
Well, I feel so sorry for those poor little kids. My kids are grown, but honestly, I don't know if I could do that to my kids. You hear these stories of these poor kids having to wear those masks. It's difficult to breathe, and also it's difficult for their development. They need to see and recognize facial cues. So it's a very difficult issue. We know that some states are saying that mask mandates are banned. One of those states, Arkansas, is today a court overturned that ban and said, no, actually schools can mandate masks. So we'll have to wait and see. School is starting up for a lot of kids, but then other school districts really don't start up until after Labor Day. And hopefully the situation will have changed by then. Hopefully the Delta variant may have played itself out by then. Some experts are saying that it looks like it might be unfolding that way. We hope so.
Yeah, we certainly do hope so. All right, Lori Johnson, medical reporter for CBN News. Thank you, Lori. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Up next, Hezbollah fires rockets into Israel. What's next for the Middle East as the tit-for-tat across the border heats up?
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? you can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. Tikkun Olam.
This is our nature as a country.
To make the world a better place.
Literally, we felt the earth shaking.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents To Life, how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
This film needs to be seen by everyone.
I was in tears.
Now you can own the inspiring documentary To Life on DVD.
There is blood on our hands if we know and we walk away.
I'm so grateful that this film was made.
To Life can be yours for a gift of $10 or more. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
We know that every minute counts to save life.
It'll bless Israel, but it'll also bless all the friends of Israel.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are making the world a better place. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com to get your copy today.
Welcome back. The Israeli military is preparing for any scenario as a dangerous escalation heats up with Hezbollah. After Hezbollah rocket launches struck inside Israel this week, Israeli tanks lining up along the border joined Israeli airstrikes in retaliating, firing into Lebanon in a tit-for-tat escalation across the border in a third day of violent attacks. The tension between Israel and Hezbollah, a proxy of Iran, is an indication of increasing tension between Israel and Iran. And the latest attacks come as Israel's defense minister has issued a warning that his country is ready to strike Iran. He says Iran is just weeks away from getting the material it needs for a nuclear weapon. The warning comes as Israel blames Iran for a deadly drone attack on an oil tanker. And as Chris Mitchell reports, the country now has a new president, a man who's been sanctioned for murdering his own people.
Ibrahim Raisi took over as the 8th president of the Islamic regime.
The sanctions imposed against the Iranian nation must be lifted. We will support any diplomatic plan that supports this goal.
Raisi spoke at his swearing-in ceremony where he touted his country as the true defenders of human rights and a force for peace in the region. Raisi is considered a hardliner, a carbon copy of religious leader Ayatollah Khamenei, and the first Iranian president to be sanctioned by the U.S. even before taking office.
Ibrahim Raisi is called the Butcher of Tehran, actually, because he has a long track record of killing his own people, going back to 1988. You can say that he's probably responsible for at least 10,000 Iranians being executed.
Len Katakovsky, a former senior advisor to the U.S. envoy for Iran, says although the Ayatollah is the ultimate decision maker, Raisi won't give up much in talks to reinstate the Iranian nuclear deal, officially known as the JCPOA.
We can expect them to play hardball, and we're seeing them playing hardball right now through their attacks on our interests, through the attacks on an Israeli-owned ship just a few days ago.
Katakovsky says it's the Iranian negotiating style.
What they're sensing is that the Biden administration is signaling weakness. They're seeing that there's no price that they have to pay after each of these attacks. And in return, instead of playing hardball, the Biden administration makes more and more concessions.
Israel, the U.S., and the U.K. are blaming Iran for the attack on the Israeli-operated oil tanker called Mercer Street that left 2 Europeans dead. Iran denies its involvement. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. is working with its partners on an appropriate response. And just today, Iran's proxy, the terrorist group Hezbollah, said it fired a barrage of rockets at Israeli positions close to the border with Lebanon. Hezbollah called it retaliation for Israeli airstrikes that came in response to rocket attacks earlier this week from Lebanon. Israel is trying to rally international support for sanctions against Iran. But some 70 countries and the European Union attended Raisi's inauguration Thursday. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said they shouldn't be there.
Raisi is the most radical Iranian president so far,
and the competition is tough. I call on the European Union. One cannot talk about human rights and at the same time pay homage to a murderer and a hangman who has eliminated hundreds of opponents of the regime.
Israel's defense minister, Benny Gantz, and foreign minister, Yair Lapid, briefed ambassadors from UN security member states on Iran's involvement in the Mercer Street ship attack and its nuclear plans. Iran has violated all of the guidelines set in the JCPOA and is only around 10 weeks from acquiring weapons-grade materials necessary for a nuclear weapon. Therefore, it is time to act. The world must apply economic sanctions and take operative action against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
The Iranians need to understand that it is impossible to sit peacefully in Tehran and from there ignite the entire Middle East. That is over.
Israel has long said it would not allow Iran to get nuclear weapons. And now that it seems the clock is ticking, Israel will have to decide how far it will go to stop it. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, by God's grace, a strong finish for an Olympic icon. Allison Felix walks away with bronze and ties an Olympic world record.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Wednesday at 3 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Finally tonight, the most decorated female track and field Olympian is giving the glory to God. Allison Felix says running is a gift from God, and today she won her 10th Olympic medal in the 400-meter race. Tomorrow she'll race again in the 400-meter relay. But the 35-year-old mother says this is her 5th and final Olympics. Felix says she's thankful for the opportunities God has given her, and she hopes people see her Christ-like character on the track. And that is all we have for you this evening. Have a great weekend.